Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the new year and welcome to a show on health. I've got a really interesting gentleman, Andy O'Brien, with us tonight. He is a leading expert in health and wellness. He's a trainer to some elite pro athletes such as Sidney Crosby, an Olympian spanning his 30-year career. Most recently, though, he's formulated a new electrolyte drink called Quench for Sizzle Brands, a new sports nutrition company, and it's on a mission to help Canadians achieve their health goals in 2025, using his experience with some of these athletic stars. Andy, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Brian.
So let's start off by just telling me a little bit about yourself, if you could, and the work that you've done with pro athletes in the NHL and the Olympics.
Sure. Well, I've started off as a strength and conditioning coach almost 30 years ago. And back then, there wasn't a lot of people really doing that as a profession. So it's kind of pre-internet days. And so you kind of had to dig under rocks and talk to a lot of people to get information about how to do that, how to help athletes prepare for what they were doing. And so, yeah, just had a passion for it and, ended up just, improving my education over the years, working with a lot of different athletes. And of course, now we have a totally different industry today where all the pro sports teams have numerous staff members, and it's just become kind of a full-fledged profession that I've been able to take advantage of these days.
How'd you get into that?
Well, I was pretty young when I started. I was still in my teens, about 18 or 19 years old. And back then, as an athlete myself, I was a multi-sport athlete. So I played a lot of different sports, and I had to learn how to change my body at different times of the year to peak for different sports, depending on whether the sport I was playing had more endurance needs or more strength needs, or I need to be a little bit leaner, a little bit more powerful. And so just had to learn a lot of different ways of doing things. And I got to meet a lot of really interesting people along the way. And then just got to, continue improving my education, and had a chance to meet Sidney Crosby at a pretty young age. I was about 3 or 4 years in my career, and so that was a great guy to build a private business around.
I can imagine that would have been a great experience. So I ran into a little bit of that problem myself. I was a cross-country runner, but I was also on the football team. I was a corner linebacker, so I didn't have to be huge, but I had to be a little bit stronger. And for cross-country running, you wanted to be lean and be able to run long distances. And to be a football player, you had to have a different physique. And I remember grade 13. I was still grade 13 at that time. Guy came up to me at a junior Argo training camp, and he said, "Buddy, you got to put on 20 pounds, or you're just not going to make it." And so I spent a summer trying to put on 20 pounds. What should I have been doing? What was the right strategy?
Well, that probably does sound like the right strategy. You picked two pretty polarizing events there with, the cross country event and, being a linebacker in football. But yeah, certainly I think the body's capable of it. I think that's one of the amazing things. The body is quite resilient. And when you choose the right stimulus, you can get there, especially when you have periods of time during the season to really give yourself the time to allow that body to change. But nowadays, of course, with sports, it's kind of a year-round thing. Even in the off season, there's different elements happening with sports. You see a lot more specialization these days, and it doesn't give people the chance to make those kind of changes.
You're primarily focused on elite athletes, but does this also have applicability to the regular Joe and Jane?
Yeah, I think it does. The human body is the human body. So I think ultimately we just try to understand these physical systems that we all have and try to figure out different ways to provide, whether it's through exercise or nutrition or various types of activity, to be able to create change in the body. And obviously athletes have slightly different needs, and certainly are taking things to a bit more of an extreme level with respect to the amount of work they need to do, and how the nutrition and the exercise even goes together. It really varies, even athlete to athlete and within sports and different sports. But, for the general population, I think there's a lot that we can gain from athletes. So there's definitely a lot of carryover and a lot of applicability there.
So we all just had a New Year's Eve party, probably drank too much, made some resolutions, decided that we might go to the gym a little bit more often or do something. And I think the rule is that within 48 or 72 hours, the vast majority of people drop their resolutions. Have you got any suggestions on, or secrets, even better, on how to be more consistent in our health and nutrition resolutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I recommend is actually trying to make changes in small increments. So instead of actually trying to flip your life upside down and go from, let's say, going to the gym 0 days a week and then trying to go to the gym 5 days a week, trying to on a month by month basis make small changes. So you might go from going 0 days a week to 2 days a week, try to sustain that consistently for 1 month. And then when you sustain that consistently for 1 month, then try to go to 3, then try to go to 4 and try to build it up that way. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the body has this kind of neurochemical experience when you have small wins. So when you choose a small increment like that and you're successful with it, it actually propels you forward to the next increment. And a lot of times when you try to make too much change at once, because the body is really wired for homeostasis, the body really doesn't respond that well to wholesale change. And so if you don't have success with it, then you kind of get that negative neurochemical experience that actually discourages the body mentally and physically from wanting to continue. And so I think if you start small and make small changes and try to get some consistency with those changes and do it in small steps, you have a much greater chance of making change that will last.
I got to tell you, I had an interesting experience this past couple of weeks. I've been dog sitting, and so I've sort of adopted a dog for the last 2 weeks, and I've been out walking 3 days, 3 times a day, and forced to take some exercise that I wouldn't normally have done. It's been transformational.
It's fantastic. That's fantastic. I'm a big dog fan myself and love dogs, and that's great. But that actually kind of hits on one of the biggest challenges that people have is the ability to sustain that change over time. So more than 90% of people that engage in some kind of fitness routine discontinue that fitness routine within the first month. And so when you have something that you have control over, like whether it's going to the gym or going for a walk, and you get to choose between doing that or something else, whether it's another hobby, whether it's something work related, something family related. Usually that new thing is the first thing to go. But when you have a dog, you don't really have a choice. It's just
No
something
choice. Had to do it. And he'll
you're
tell
committed
you
to. You
very
have to
quickly
do
if
it.
you're not out there.
That's it, exactly. And so I think when you just decide that it's a non-negotiable, whatever that new fitness activity is, whether it's a class, whether it's a gym, whether it's going for a walk, you just make that a non-negotiable and you say it just has to be done no matter what, whether it feels good or whether it doesn't, or whether it conflicts with something else. You just kind of double down and try to make that choice.
So we gotta do it in small increments. We gotta make it not a choice, but something we have to do. So we gotta double down and not make it a choice. I think that having fun doing it is key too. And so therefore, I really quite enjoy getting out with the dog, and so somehow making it fun is an added benefit to the whole process. Um, Anything else? Anything else? Like some people talk about vision boards or putting something up on the wall or having a fitness buddy or anything else that you'd recommend?
The fitness buddy is a great concept, and in some ways, your dog walking analogy kind of fits with that, right? You have a buddy, you have somebody that you're looking forward to spending a little bit of time with, and you take on that energy. And it's very easy to make the choice on your own, to not go somewhere if you had something planned. But when you have somebody else, there's a little bit of built-in accountability there. So that could be a friend, it could be a trainer, it could be somebody that you kind of seek out to say, hey, I'm looking for an accountability partner here just to, keep me on track for a period of time. And so I think there's a lot of advantages to that.
We're going to take a break and come back with Andy O'Brien, and we're going to talk a little bit more about nutrition and about his new product. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're chatting tonight with Andy O'Brien. Andy is an expert at fitness and nutrition. He's been training elite athletes for, what did you say, 30 years? That's quite a while.
Almost 30 years. Yeah, I'm getting up there.
Fantastic, and it's a real pleasure to chat with you. And I think some of the suggestions you've already made are excellent. So thank you for that. We talked about small increments. We've talked about not making it a choice, but making it something you just have to do. Talked about having a buddy, and we talked about making some fun out of it, making sure that it's enjoyable and you're out there and enjoying something that is good for you, not just doing it because it's a struggle. What about nutrition? And the balance between, performance-based nutrition and nutrition for everyday people. Does the nutrition that you'd recommend for elite athletes apply to, again, everyday people?
Yeah, it does. A lot of times the things that we're trying to do with elite athletes are very basic things. We're trying to eat a lot less processed foods and eat more nutrient-rich foods, so whole fruits and vegetables, high quality proteins, healthy whole grains. Those are the types of things that we're trying to focus on. Obviously, for elite athletes, the total amount of food changes because obviously they're burning a lot more calories, they're more physically active for their recovery and to fuel the muscles and the things that they have to do. You have to actually eat more food. And typically, especially in the sports where you have this sustained high intensity work over multiple hours. That's really where they start getting into the high carbohydrate foods. But for a lot of people, it's trying to get rid of the processed foods and the refined carbohydrates and really just trying to eat, high nutrient, low calorie type food. I think those are, pretty safe advice across the board.
What are some examples of high nutrient, low calorie foods?
Well, I think you can, one of the things I've been a big believer in is trying to paint all the colors of the rainbow, trying to get a lot of different colors that represent different phytonutrients, fruits and vegetables mainly. Really high quality processed or high quality meats as opposed to the processed meats. So trying to stay away from the processed foods, trying to eat some of the pasture raised, more natural meats,
More
pure.
submarine sandwiches, no cold cuts?
Staying away from the cold cuts is probably a really good idea. And then just the crackers, the chips, the cookies, the things that are obviously high in sugar and high in calories that don't have a lot of like real good nutrition in them is a really key thing. But one of the things, one of the teams that I worked with from 2015 to 2020 was the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we had a chance to win a championship there. And one of the real bright spots of that program was the nutrition program. We worked with our chefs there to try to make it so that you didn't have to choose between food that tastes good and food that is good for you. And so we really just set out to try to marry this ability to put food on the plate that the players actually really enjoy. And we did a lot of creative things. We had things like Mexican Mondays, so we would have different themes that we would use different types of culinary dishes. But again, we were always trying to get rid of the sugar, the refined oils, the processed foods, and just eat a lot of really good whole foods and use the flavors of those foods to try to make it really enjoyable for the players.
I get, tons of people, like lots of us probably do, calling me up to try to pitch me on nutritional supplements. And, every single company says they're the best nutritional supplement. Tell me, what do you think about nutritional supplements?
Well, I think the supplements are important, and supplements, when you actually look at most people's diets, quality of the vitamins and minerals coming into the diets and the quality of the nutrients, usually there is some gap there. And even just taking something very simple like vitamin D, for example, it's a pretty well-known fact that most people in the northern hemispheres don't get enough vitamin D through the winter months. So it's not always easy to get everything that you need through food. And so there's about 6 supplements actually that I recommend for people overall as a base of nutritional supplements that can be beneficial for most people. And then obviously it varies a little bit when you have individual needs beyond that.
Six. What are the six?
So for the 6, typically I'm recommending a well-formulated multivitamin. So it has like really good quality sources of vitamins and minerals. Second thing is a fish oil. So providing omega-3s, and for people that are vegans, typically omega-3 source that's coming from a vegan source. Then you have vitamin D. So especially for people in this part of the world through the winter, I'm recommending vitamin D. Magnesium is a nutrient that's very important, very good for health, and has been known to have widespread deficiency across a pretty large part of the population. Collagen is another thing, really good for joints, muscle tissue, tendons, really good for decreasing inflammation, really good for skin health. And the last one, which is really interesting, is creatine. So creatine is a supplement now that is recommended for all kinds of different demographics, young and old, for a variety of people. It has benefits both for the body physically and mentally. And creatine is actually one of the safest supplements that are out there. And so certainly there may be some people that don't need creatine or should be taking creatine, but it is now one of those things that has really good safety research and applicability across a wide variety of people. And it's trying to find its way into that conversation of beneficial for all people.
I've never heard of that. What is creatine?
So creatine has been around for a while as a sports supplement. So it was used for athletes to improve power and explosiveness, and it was also used for building muscle. And it slowly has been around for a very long time and just has kind of really got there with respect to the type of research. And you don't have to take a lot of creatine. 3 to 5 grams is enough creatine, but can be beneficial for women and men, people who are athletes, non-athletes. And again, has both benefits for the brain and the body.
Fantastic. Collagen. I didn't know you could actually consume collagen.
You can consume collagen. Yeah. So collagen is usually available in isolated collagens or collagen peptides. And people nowadays are putting this in their coffee. They're putting it in protein shakes and smoothies, taking it in a wide variety of forms, but definitely something that has a lot of benefits.
And did you say vitamin D or vitamin E?
Vitamin D. Yeah. Vitamin D is typically
I
we,
thought
we
vitamin D comes from the sun. How do you consume it?
typically comes from the sun, but you can consume vitamin D as a supplement as well. And so typically because we get less sun in the northern hemisphere, and vitamin D is important for a variety of other functions in the body, not just to provide the vitamin, but vitamin D works for the immune system. It works in a variety of different types of hormonal systems. And so, yeah, it's just well known that we have this vitamin D deficiency, certainly in Canada, north of the border here. And so there's some benefits of taking it, certainly through the winter months.
I think you just got to get it in the sunshine a little bit too.
That's important. That's important. Yeah, a little bit harder to do in January, but certainly when you can do that, there certainly can be some benefits to that.
So flying south can be good for your health as well.
It can be certainly not just exposure to the sun, but actually just exposure to sunlight can be beneficial for sleep and your circadian rhythms as well. So just the exposure with your eyes, to daylight can be really a beneficial part of those southern trips.
And magnesium, I thought magnesium was what they plowed into fields for plants.
No, magnesium is actually it's an essential mineral, and it's actually essential electrolyte. It's part of that those minerals that are delivered in the form of electrolytes. But yeah, magnesium can be really beneficial for muscle tissue, carbohydrate metabolism, important for sleep, very important for health overall. And it is one of those minerals that, for whatever reason, our bodies seem to be getting a little bit less magnesium than we need, and so it's beneficial to include that in your supplementation routine.
Now, you talk about hydration, and I guess that's something about your product and your company. But I heard something about 8 liters a day or 8 glasses a day. What is that?
8 glasses a day has been around for a very long time for hydration. I think you'll hear the experts say different things, but generally about 2 liters of fluids a day is kind of that kind of
Does my
general.
coffee count?
Well, what happens is coffee, because caffeine is actually a diuretic, it actually increases the hydration needs that you have, and so it's actually causing you to basically kind of pee out fluids, and so any kind of caffeine or alcohol will cause you to do that. So if you're consuming any caffeine or alcohol, that takes that 2 liters, and that actually starts to bump that
So
up.
it's a negative hydration.
It can be a negative hydration. And whenever your physical activity, whether it's fitness classes or walks or whatever, is causing you to sweat, then you have increased needs on top of that. So we're really looking at somewhere between 2 and 4 liters of fluids a day, which typically is a little bit in excess of what people are consuming, especially if you do have some alcohol or caffeine in your diet as well.
2 to 4 liters a day. That's a lot.
It's a little bit more than what most people realize, right? And so I think that there's some benefits in just educating people. And one of the things that I've noticed in hydration is not everybody likes to get that with just water. A lot of people will like to drink juice, sports drinks, different beverages, sodas. And so one of the things that can happen is if you are consuming those fluids throughout the course of the day and you like to have something with some taste, you can accumulate a lot of sugar and a lot of different types of chemicals. And so a lot of people accumulate a majority of the sugar that they intake during a day through fluids.
Diet Cokes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing, and that's ultimately one of the main reasons why we formulated Quench, which is our electrolyte product, is that we wanted to be able to provide that hydration without the input of sugar, where a lot of sports drinks, do have sugar included in them as well.
Can you tell us a little bit? This is a company called Sizzle Brands, and you've got a product called Quench Hydration. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Sizzle Brands is basically a house of brands. So we have a variety of different brands in the health and wellness space. Some formulated for the most elite professional athletes, some formulated a little bit more for the general population. But essentially, what we want to try to do at Sizzle is we're really trying to take the best products and make those available for more people. And so the standard of our products is that we want the product to be something that the highest level professional athlete would take and would use. And so we try to identify what that is. And then we try to use creativity and innovation to make it affordable and consumable for pretty much anybody. So that's really what we've been setting out to do. And Quench is our electrolyte drink. And so essentially, we really start with trying to take the sugar out of some of these beverages. And so, like we mentioned, a lot of the beverages people consume because they taste good, but they're also consuming a lot of sugar with those things in order to get that taste. And so we wanted to create a really great tasting beverage that didn't have any sugar, and we wanted to be able to provide electrolytes in that. So for people that are active, people that want to supplement their diet with essential electrolytes and those important minerals, we use the best quality minerals. We try to formulate it so that we have the right ratio of minerals, so that you can drink it numerous times during the day, and you're getting a right balance of electrolytes through that process.
Now, how do you make it taste good if it doesn't have sugar?
Well, we use stevia as our sweetener. So stevia is an all-natural sweetener. It's a plant-based sweetener, and to be honest, when you use the highest quality minerals and you're putting things like B vitamins and really high quality electrolytes, a lot of times there are challenges in making it taste good. So that's kind of what we do, through our product manufacturing. We really try to find that optimal taste that people really enjoy having it, and then you have the peace of mind knowing that you're putting the best quality minerals and the best quality ingredients into your body without the sugar.
And where can we get this new drink?
So Quench is out there. It's available. You can definitely get it online. I think it's quenchhydration.com, and also available at Sport Check and a variety of other retailers across Canada. But quenchhydration.com is a good place to start.
At Sport Check, so you're actually selling it to sports stores.
Yeah, sports stores, sports retailers. Yeah, they are carrying it, and obviously we get a lot of use for Quench out of team sports. So a lot of the athletes that are in a lot of these sports retailers, that's a great place for them to be able to access it as well.
So are people going to start dumping it on coaches at the end of games?
That wouldn't be bad. We wouldn't mind that actually. That would be okay. At least the coaches are going to be a little cleaner, no sugar in those baths.
So tell us a story, if you could, of one of your big successes with some of your athletes, some of your clients, about how you've been able to transform them or get them ready for the big competition.
Well, I think there's a lot of different stories that can be utilized, and it starts first and foremost is really supporting a human being, and everybody is a little bit different. And learning how to train an individual is one thing. Really have to study the sport, you have to study the individual physically, then you have to really study them as a person and find out how they like to work and what they're going to respond to. But one thing that's really interesting when we're studying the hydration needs of pro athletes, essentially what we do is we have them wear a little patch and we collect their sweat. And then we measure what they're drinking, and then we weigh them before and after, and we take a little urine sample. And so we're able to identify how much they sweat in the activity that they're doing, what they drink, what they like to drink. We just tell them to do what they normally do. And so we can see who drinks what and how much. And then we're able to provide advice, and that little sort of sweat patch is going to collect their sweat, and we can see what kind of minerals are lost. And so we can be very specific with the guides that we do. But what's always amazing to me is that you are always seeing how much individual variability there is with respect to what people drink. So we have some people that all they drink is water, and that's all they want to drink. Then we have some people that will drink no water. It's just 100% sports drink. And so I've just realized that everyone is different. Everybody likes to do different things and consume things in different ways. And one of the things that's been really exciting for me with my experience with Sizzle is where I've had, for the most part, my whole career working with athletes that'll pretty much do anything that you ask. We now have to make things really appealing for the masses and the general population and people that maybe aren't in that same situation for athletes. And so we've really just had to factor in, taste, convenience, affordability, palatability, all of those things. And so it's been a great learning experience for me to really kind of add to understanding what people need to take to building products that people like to take as well.
Where do you get electrolytes if you don't get it through a sports drink or your product?
Well, one of the ways to actually get some electrolytes is through bone broth. I don't know if you've taken much bone broth, but you actually get some good protein in there, some good collagen through bone broth a lot of the times, and you can get some good electrolytes as well. Some soups have critical electrolytes. The primary electrolyte that gets lost in sweat is sodium. And the more heat that your body gets exposed to, the more sodium gets lost relative to potassium, magnesium, some of the other minerals. And so I like bone broth from that. Coconut water is another thing that has some electrolytes, but the downside with coconut water, it has a lot of sugar. So it's often not recommended. And it has less sodium. It has a little bit more potassium. But bone broth has kind of been my go-to, or some type of healthy chicken soup or something along those lines. And then, of course, the electrolyte
Well, there's
products.
some use for that turkey that we didn't finish off at Christmas meal.
That's one of the best things. You're sitting on a gold mine there with those bones. You got to boil those bones and make a nice broth out of it and get all that good protein, and it can be quite delicious as well.
Awesome, awesome, excellent. So let's summarize. It's the beginning of the new year. What are you saying? Give me a summary of your suggestions of what we got to do. We got to do small increments. What else?
Well, I think the small increments is huge. So really start slow. Try to create a plan and get to that plan slowly over 3 months to 6 months. So, if it's the number of days that you're going to the gym, or how long you're going, or how long you're going for your walk, really try to set out something that you think is very reasonable to accomplish, and try to stick to that for 1 month, and then try to bump it up in another reasonable increment. I think that's really important. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The second thing is that one of the best benefits of engaging in a healthy lifestyle, or incorporating exercise, is building resiliency. So resiliency is important at a physical level, but also at a mental and emotional level as well, so that when stress comes into our life, we're a bit more prepared for that. And so I think if you look at resiliency as part of the goal of exercise, you can start to see the challenges and some of the negatives, which is the discomfort you might feel, or the difficulty, or the motivation aspect of it. And you start to see that as positive. The more difficult it is, the more uncomfortable it becomes, the greater the benefits, because you have an opportunity to work through it and build that resiliency. So I think that's one of the greatest benefits. And you almost start to invite the pain a little bit and almost turn that into a positive. And I think the third thing is just really understanding that nutrition is something that it's hard to change, because our bodies get adapted to what we like to do, and we start to crave the things that we like to do. But again, when you stick to it, and when you're consistent, and you make some just very simple and wise choices, and your body really begins to reap the benefits of that, and you get past that kind of 3 week to 1 month period, you now start to crave the good things and the new things that you're doing. So I think that if you stick it out for the whole month of January and get to February, you'd be really surprised at what you're capable of then.
Fantastic. And remind us the name of your product.
So Quench Hydration and Sizzle Brands. QuenchHydration.com is a great place to start.
Andy O'Brien, really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure.
We're going to take a break, and when I come back, I'm going to introduce you to someone else who has transformed their life in a way that I think will inspire us for the new year. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Andy O'Brien, really appreciate it.